Where you're playing with the band, you're scared of chasing man. It shows how to perform. Where your style's been changed because we're so vain. But you'll take a sunset by storm. Look out, honey, you're bad.
Well, get those life vests zipped and clipped, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bass Tour Anglers Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Nicewonger, and in this episode, we're going to look at the symbiotic relationship between some bird species and our beloved largemouth bass. First of all, Tactacam fisheye cameras make this podcast possible. Tactacam, this is the company that offers high-resolution action cameras for about half the price of what the other guys charge. Are you in the market for an action camera? Check out the fisheye camera by Tactacam. You'll be glad you did. As you know, we are also the Western representatives for Ducket Fishing. You know these guys, the strongest pro staff in all tournament fishing. If you have any questions about the Ducket Fishing lineup of pro-driven products, send us a DM on Instagram or go to our website, www.basstouranglers.com, and send us an email.
Change. It's inevitable. To improve, you must adapt. The sport is evolving. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change of basic concepts. Don't get left behind. Introducing Paradigm. Paradigm Reels by Ducket Fishing. Pro-driven.
Today's episode comes from our Systematic Bass Fishing series. Taking your bass fishing and adding a systematic approach to it, using your intuition, lure systems, and logic to maximize your time on the water. Today, we are looking at the symbiotic relationship between some birds and bass. But first, if you like the content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. As you know, many of our episodes feature interviews with top pros. Do you have a subject that you'd like to see us talk about? Do you have a pro that you want to hear from? Is there a problem in our sport that needs fixing? Drop us your idea in the comment section and we'll get right on it. Symbiosis. Any type of close and long-term biological interaction between two different biological organisms, be it mutualistic, commensalistic, or parasitic. This fall, I've noticed a direct relationship between several different bird species and largemouth bass. The birds are marine-oriented and feed on the same bait fish that the largemouth bass are feeding on, mainly shad, but other minnows as well. First, I've noticed that bass push the bait up to the surface, making the bait accessible to these diving birds. If it was not for the bass pushing the bait up, these birds would have a much more difficult time diving down to find where the bait fish is. But because the bass are constantly on the shad have to live in the upper water column. Second, I've noticed that birds chase this bait into the heavy brush where bass often like to hide. And when these birds push the bait into the brush, it activates the bass. It has been an amazing thing to watch, and it is really the inspiration for this video. Now, if you take a look at the birds in the background, they are kind of cruising around, and these are the exact kinds of birds that will activate the schools of bait. They start to dive, and they begin to push the bait into that brush. That heavy brush is where the bass are hanging out. Bass like to be in heavy brush. They like to be in heavy cover. They prefer not to be out free swimming. And when the birds drive the bait in there, it's only a matter of time before the fish get activated. If you take a look at the background here, you'll see a couple of white birds fly into the screen, and this is exactly what sets these fish off. So there's one of them, it flies into the screen, and it's going to get the bait fish stirred up, and it's going to begin to push them into this brush. And once the bait fish start to swim away from the birds into the brush, watch how it comes alive. This is a perfect example of symbiosis. The bird drives the bait fish into the brush. The bait fish come up. the bass come up chasing, and for a few minutes, it is crazy. You can see how the school of baitfish has swam through that brush. Now, the bass themselves also pushing shad and baitfish to the surface makes it a lot easier for the birds to get to. This is the epitome, if you will, of what symbiosis is. Now, notice in the background, this group of I believe those are grebes in the background, but they're stirring up these baitfish, moving them into the brush, getting the bass activated. It's really quite an amazing thing to watch. And it just kind of dawns on you after a while that what you're watching here is you're watching two different species play off of each other. The birds have access to bait that would probably be in deeper water if it was not for the bass down below. And the bass becoming activated when the birds drive the bait into that cover. But it's more than just bait fish. I've seen a number of times. In fact, one fall I was actually able to pattern grebes in my local lake. On more than one occasion, I saw these birds being followed by wolf packs of bass. And it was really strange to watch it. And I didn't understand what I was looking at until one of the grebes came up with a big crawdad in its mouth. And on another occasion, I watched a grebe with a crawdad in his mouth drop the crawdad. The wolf pack behind it absolutely attacked the crawdad. They fought over it. It was really something to see. Again, another example of symbiosis. These grebes are very good at diving down and picking crawdads off the bottom. The bass know this. The bass follow the grebes. And on those occasions when the grebe becomes a little sloppy, the bass capitalize on it. And finally, you might not think that mud hens do anything useful for bass, but they are aquatic vegetation feeders. And when a big group of mud hens are active, they are absolutely tearing up a grass bed. When they tear up a grass bed, they're exposing crawdads, smaller bait fish, and all kinds of other parts of the bass food chain. And I know a lot of times we look at these mud hens and we think, they're just mud hens. But they really do a service, and they really do provide part of this symbiotic relationship for bass. I'm not really sure what bass do for mud hens, but when mud hens dive and begin picking up grass and tearing grass out of grass beds, it stirs up a lot of the stuff that the bass like to eat. And if you will fish the edge of a big group of mud hens, you'll be surprised what you catch out underneath it. There are bass underneath the mud hens, and they are taking advantage of the stirred up grass, the torn up grass, and all the things that live in grass, crawdads and bluegill and other small bait fish. Great blue herons are a favorite of mine. I really don't understand what bass do for great blue herons, but I do know that great blue herons are one of the best fish finding tools that you can use out there. If you pull into a cove and you see a great blue heron walking the bank, it's guaranteed that there are small bait fish in the shallow water. If you can find 2 or 3 of these big birds walking the bank in an area, it's a gold mine. Never overlook the opportunity that seeing a great blue heron or a pack of great blue herons working a bank, what that opportunity can be for you. It could be a gold mine. Systematic bass fishing is about using your resources in an organized, methodical manner. Understanding how various species that are completely different capitalize on each other's feeding habits is one more gold nugget that can help make your day on the water that much better. Well, that'll do it for today. Keep those life vests zipped and clipped. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time on the water.